Hello YouTube, we're back again. A little bit later than usual, apologies for that. It's just Paul and me today, but we've got a good show for you, hopefully. I'm doing a little bit of housekeeping.
And I'm getting home, listeners. Oh, well, viewers, listeners. I'm just getting up a really good article from this month's Toastmaster magazine. I'm going to call it up on the screen so that Moira and I can have an in-depth discussion.
Well, I have actually been trying to get there, but for some reason or other, it logged me out. I don't know, Toastmasters.
Toastmasters.org logged you out?
It did. It logged me out and it wouldn't go into... Well, first of all, it wouldn't go into magazine and then it logged me out. Capture. Why has it suddenly given me a capture? Oh, Lord. I wish they wouldn't. Palm trees. I can't...
Well, I have...
They give such awful pictures for this Google capture. That sometimes it can be very difficult to respond properly. Hey-ho.
Well, I had no trouble getting in, but
Really?
it's taking a wee bit of time to call up the magazine.
That's
and the
what
reason I
mean.
wanted to get the article is that according to Ted Malanphy, who has read it, it's a super article about how to help a guest to become a member.
And this is
that
what
must be
and this is what we're going to talk about in section 4 of this week's podcast.
What, three days' time, Moira?
On 4 days' time, on Monday. Okay, I have the magazine open at last. Now, Ted said it was on page 9, which of course is no use whatsoever when you're looking at it on the web version. Tips and from guest to member. Here we are, by Gietel Hesselberg. Now I always put the link to when we use the articles on the magazine as a discussion point for an episode. I always put the link in our website so people can actually go to the article if they wish. So I'm actually putting it into our website as we speak. If I can think how to do it, from guest to member. Here we go. So our readers can actually go straight to the article in the magazine. Okay, Paul, let's get ready and do some recording. So, recording.
Oh, just 1 second. I just need to close my door so my dog doesn't bark.
That's always a good idea. And just for fun, my cat has just come in, decided to eat her lunch at 3:30. A bit late in the afternoon.
I'm all ready, and I'm very much looking forward to this opportunity for you and I to do it, Moira. It's a while since you and I did the talk show for talkers, just the two of us.
Yeah, now just out of curiosity, the link that you sent me is to Hoover.
Yes, indeed it is. Yeah. So look, we can discuss all that later.
Indeed.
I have that particular website in question ready for episode 4.
Good. Well, I now have to do a little bit of jetting up because I have to take over from Ted, which means I have to... Yeah, okay. So let us commence. Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and guests. You are very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers here on irishtalkers.com. You can get in touch with us a number of ways, one of which is by email to info@irishtalkers.com. Another is via Facebook to our Facebook page, which is the Talk Show for Talkers. You can also find us on the web at www.irishtalkers.com. And on that web page, or those web pages, you can find a lot of useful information, including our weekly newspaper, which contains links to various articles on the web, which have been carefully curated for you, all about Toastmasters, confidence, public speaking, etc., etc. Everything to do with being a better speaker/person. I'm joined today by the pernicious, oh no, that's a bad one. By the pernickety, no, that's another bad one. By the popular Paul O'Mahony. Paul, you're very welcome.
Well, Maura, it's a pleasure to be here. And listeners, thank you very much for tuning into a very special episode of the Talk Show for Talkers, when there are only two of us.
And it's been a long time since I came on mic. I've been, for the last 4 months, behind the mic doing the background stuff, the recording and the editing and all the other stuff that has to be done. It's good to be back. I'm pleased that my mouth can be run again for, well, at least for one episode or a couple of episodes. Now,
well, I have to say on behalf of all the listeners, we've missed you, Moira. So welcome back. So take it away, Moira. Have you got a quotation?
You, well, as usual, we have in this episode the quotation and a word of the week. In part 2, we'll be looking at or listening to a very interesting episode about empathy. It's something which I've listened to it and I am really keen that you take all of it in. It's going to be super. In episode 3, Paul's going to be talking about our district conference, which is coming up fairly soon. And in episode 4, we'll be looking at from guest to member, inspired by an article on the Toastmaster magazine. So we'll kick off with Ted's thought for the week. And this week, Ted has chosen Simon Sinek once again. I say that not disparagingly because Simon Sinek comes up with some pretty good sayings. And he said, "It's been said that laughter is the shortest distance between human hearts." Laughter is the shortest distance between human hearts. What do you think of that, Paul?
Well, I'm shocked by it because I have never heard it before. And my first reaction to it was, wow, is there a shorter journey between human hearts? And I thought, that's brilliant. Two people who are laughing are very about the same thing are close together. Now, supposing, on the other hand, I start laughing at you. You drop the microphone and the microphone hits a bottle of wine which you had put under the table and it spills all over your shoes, which you were just trying on and were thinking of sending back to the shoe shop because they didn't fit. It might not be such a joining of human hearts then. So I guess it is shared laughter. Would that be a fair, pedantic distinction? I
think that's absolutely right, because for two hearts to come together, they both have to be laughing, I guess. I guess that's the meaning behind this. And I do sort of agree that if you are sharing laughter, you are automatically coming very close to any person with whom you are sharing that laughter. Now, whether this is related to the human heart or just to the human mind, is another matter. You see, we use this word, the human heart, as a metaphor for human emotion, don't we?
Human emotions of love, let us
Yes,
say.
human emotions
For
of love.
this part. In
Yeah.
fact, if we draw a heart, or, well, one way of drawing a heart as an emoji or something else is that it stands for love. I love something, so I heart it.
Yeah.
But if two people laugh at the same thing at the same time, what they are learning about each other is that we share, at least the assumption is, we share the same sense of humor. That implies that, you know, at least if we were to get together for the rest of our lives, we would avoid a situation where one person thinks something is funny, the other person thinks something is disgraceful, and they end up having rows about whether it was actually funny or disgraceful.
Okay,
And
I have a question for you. Is laughter an emotion?
I wouldn't have said it was. I think laughter is a behavior. The emotion is, well, good question. Is the emotion joy? Is the emotion, well, I think it's,
It does make you think of it, doesn't it?
Joy
Yeah.
means that that's an emotion. You can't say I feel laughter. You can say I feel like laughing. I think, look, this is not about the use of the dictionary. This is about whether you can be understood by people, other people. So if I was said, look, I felt huge emotion. I was laughing and laughing and laughing. Everyone would understand you. But if you were to say, list me all the emotions, you know, it would start with love, hate, sorrow, disappointment, anger, and you could carry on. But I don't think anyone would mention the word laughter.
Okay. Well,
The
let's.
usage suggests that laughter is not what we regard as an emotion, but we all know that people laugh, usually, not always, when they're kind of happy. But there's also the viciousness of laughter when you laugh at somebody's misfortune,
Yes.
and that is a form of laughter.
Yes.
And in fact, it could be indistinguishable.
There is a big difference between laughing at something or laughing at something and laughing with somebody.
Ah, yeah, therein lies
Therein lies.
something
Well,
is quite in society.
Yeah,
which is
what
the
we've
phrase,
been
"Look,
talking,
I wasn't laughing at you, I was laughing with you."
what we've been talking about is very much related to, if not the same as, being amicable. And I believe you have a word of the week, Paul.
I do, and as you say, it's amicable. Listeners, it's spelled AMICABLE. Now, this is a word packed with associations. So amicable is about good humor, isn't it? To be an amicable person, and it's about being friendly. And ami in French means friend. So amicable somehow or other has a Latin root, because amo, amas, amat, amamus, amatis, amant is I love, you love, he loves. So that was one of the earliest things that somebody who was learning Latin would, and maybe that was drummed into them like it was drummed into me, but amicable, definitely characterized by friendly goodwill, to be at peace. You know, it's not exactly as friendly as you can get, but it's amicable. We had amicable relations after they did that. That's different from being their best buddy. But if you put them all along a continuum, amicable is in there somewhere. And, you know, just to kind of emphasize what the word means, let's look at the opposite of amicable. Disharmonious, discordant, uncongenial. I mean, these are disagreeable. These are all. So you think, certainly being, if you're amicable, if we had an amicable discussion, it means that we weren't in unpleasant disagreement. We may have had been some differences between us because you can amicably discuss differences. Moira, when did the word amicable enter the English language? Do you have a theory about that?
Yes, I do. I think it came into being in about 1521.
Oh, look here. You're very, very close. Very close. Much closer, though, to 1421. It came in the 15th century.
Do you know, I was going to go back into the 1400s, 15th century, and then I thought, well, it's more likely to be Elizabethan or Shakespearean or that rather than earlier. But then when it came out of my mouth, I realized that because of its Latin roots, that it could well be much earlier.
Well, I had a strange experience today looking at when words originated, and I looked up the word success. When did success enter the English language?
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to guess, or shall I just tell all the listeners at the same time?
I would say that was probably a later one, but I'll probably be wrong there. It's probably 1342.
Oh, very, very good. No, it was again in the middle of the 1400s. But I was really taken aback with that because I couldn't tell you what the etymology of the word success is. It doesn't sound terribly Latin to me. It might be successiore or something like that.
Yeah.
But I don't know where it comes from. But I would have guessed that success was much later than that. I would have gone into, but I suppose Shakespeare must have used it.
Yeah, I guess so. Now, we have actually come to the end of this episode. I feel that we could probably have gone on chatting on this subject for the next half an hour.
That's what you get at Toastmasters, of course, because a half an hour chat about the things we've been chatting about would simply be 10 table topics joined together without hesitation between them. So, I mean, anyone can talk for half an hour about a subject if they simply arrange to do 10 table topics about a subject.
Very true. Join us again tomorrow at the same time when we'll be listening to Simon Sinek again with a very interesting piece on empathy and leadership. We'll see you then. I
just had an idea, Moira.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this. Can you imagine at a club meeting, we've got two teams, let's say.
Yeah.
And the idea is 3 in a team.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a subject given and a question given. And the first person in the team does a table topic.
Mm-hmm.
2-minute table topic with, the usual 30 seconds grace. Mm-hmm. And then their next team member has to carry on a natural continuation of what the other person was saying. So they really have to listen. The idea being that between the 3 of them, they would record, let's just call it a 8-minute speech. Mm-hmm. Or 7-minute speech. 3 people have to make a 7-minute speech about the same one, but they each get 3. Look, you know what I mean. Yeah. And the other team goes. Yeah. The other team does the same thing, and then there's a vote in the club for who was the best speech.
Not a bad idea.
In fact, you could have 3 teams of 3 because you get 9 members in the club, and that would make it even better, wouldn't it?
It would indeed.
There we are. Let's find a club. You're
good suggestion.
Of a club. I'm sure you have influence.
Influence may be, but my chairmanship is not dictatorial. It is. What's the word? Supportive.
Did I use the word dictator?
No.
I simply implied that you would float the idea.
I would, yeah. Okay, let's go on to part 2 of this week's Talk Show for Talkers. I can get my... why is this not changing to... That's it. I'll start in the right place. Start at the beginning and carry on as you mean to go. Something like that. Close. Oh, apparently. Oh, okay, forget that. I've forgotten how difficult it is to try and run the recording and the streaming and talk at the same time. It's phenomenally difficult.
Well, it's all practice, Moira, because you've done it before. And I'm sure the very first time you tried to do it, that would have been the equivalent of stuttering or of, stop, start. Oh, I pressed the wrong button, blah, blah, blah. But then you got to the point where it flowed.
Indeed. I'm frequently pressing the wrong button, of course, as I nearly did then. I forget to press when I have somebody on full screen speaker, as I have now with you and now with me, and somebody else starts speaking, I forget to go back to two speakers, as I have now done. But of course, you wouldn't appreciate this unless you were watching the stream on YouTube. Let's go into part 2. Welcome back, Toastmasters, will-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends, to part 2 of this week's talk show for talkers here on irishtalkers.com. We sometimes have interviews. We sometimes bring you audio from other sources. I'll rephrase that. Our interview guest was unable to come today, so instead, Ted has chosen for you what I consider to be an extremely interesting audio piece from Simon Sinek about empathy, but not just empathy on its own, empathy in relation to leaders and leadership. Let me edit that out whilst we're not talking, because that was a stupid mistake. We sometimes have interviews. Was that the bit, or was it this week's talk show for talkers here on irishtalkers.com? Our interview guest that was it. Okay. Now this is quite a long piece. I think it's about 14 minutes, but it's worth it. So there won't be time for any. Okay.
Is there time for you today to play it so I can listen to
Absolutely.
it? Or I'll understand if there isn't.
I don't have time constraints apart from the fact that we started late, but because it is now 15:54, which is generally speaking 1600. But I'm quite happy to play it. Let's do so.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'd like to.
Okay.
So I'm embarrassed that I have a career. I talk about things like trust and cooperation, and there should be no demand for my work. But the fact of the matter is there is demand for my work, which means that there's an opportunity. It means that trust and cooperation are not yet standard in our organizations, and yet they should be, and we know that, which is why we're looking for ways to bring those things to our organizations. So I thought I would do something a little different today. You know, when you're speaking to tens of thousands of people and you have the opportunity to share a message, of course, most rational people would say, let's go with something I've talked about lots of times and I'm really good at, but I'm not normal, so I'm going to do something completely new, and I hope this works out. There are two things that I think that great leaders need to have: empathy and perspective. And I think these things are very often forgotten. Leaders are so often so concerned about their status or their position in an organization, they actually forget their real job. And the real job of a leader is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in our charge. And I don't think people realize this, and I don't think people train for this. When we're junior, our only responsibility is to be good at our jobs. That's all we really have to do. And some people actually go get advanced educations so that they can be really good at their jobs, accountants or whatever, right? And you show up and you work hard, and the company will give us tons and tons of training how to do our jobs. They'll show us how to use the software. They'll send us away for a few days to get trained in whatever it is that we're doing for the company. And then they expect us to go be good at our jobs. And that's what we do. We work very hard. And if you're good at your job, they'll promote you. And at some point, you'll get promoted to a position where we're now responsible for the people who do the job we used to do, but nobody shows us how to do that. And that's why we get managers and not leaders. Because the reason our managers are micromanaging us is because they actually do know how to do the job better than us. That's what got them promoted. Really what we have to do is go through a transition. Some people make it quickly, some people make it slowly, and unfortunately some people will never make that transition at all. Which is we have to go through this transition of being responsible for the job and then turning into somebody who's now responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. And as I said before, one of the great things that is lacking in most of our companies is that they are not teaching us how to lead. And leadership is a skill like any other. It is a practicable, learnable skill. And it is something that you work on. It's like a muscle. If you practice it all the days, you will get good at it and you will become a strong leader. If you stop practicing, you will become a weak leader. Like parenting, everyone has the capacity to be a parent. Doesn't mean everybody wants to be a parent, and doesn't mean everybody should be a parent. Leadership is the same. We all have the capacity to be a leader. Doesn't mean everybody should be a leader, and it doesn't mean everybody wants to be a leader. And the reason is because it comes at great personal sacrifice. Remember, you're not in charge, you're responsible for those in your charge. That means things like when everything goes right, you have to give away all the credit. And when everything goes wrong, you have to take all the responsibility. That sucks, right? It's things like staying late to show somebody what to do. It's things like when something does actually break, when something goes wrong, instead of yelling and screaming and taking over, you say, try again. When the overwhelming pressures are not on them, the overwhelming pressures are on us. At the end of the day, great leaders are not responsible for the job. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the job. They're not even responsible for the results. I love talking to CEOs and say, what's your priority? And they put their hands on their hips all proudly and say, my priority is my customer. I'm like, really? You haven't talked to a customer in 15 years. There's no CEO on the planet responsible for the customer. They're just not. They're responsible for the people who are responsible for the people who are responsible for the customer. I'll tell you a true story. A few months ago, I stayed at the Four Seasons in Las Vegas. It is a wonderful hotel. And the reason it's a wonderful hotel is not because of the fancy beds. Any hotel can go and buy a fancy bed. The reason it's a wonderful hotel is because of the people who work there. If you walk past somebody at the Four Seasons and they say hello to you, you get the feeling that they actually wanted to say hello to you. It's not that somebody told them that you have to say hello to all the customers, say hello to all the guests, right? You actually feel that they care. Now, in their lobby, they have a coffee stand. And one afternoon, I went to buy a cup of coffee, and there was a barista by the name of Noah who was serving me. Noah was fantastic. He was friendly and fun, and he was engaging with me, and I had so much fun buying a cup of coffee, I actually think I gave 100% tip, right? He was wonderful. So as is my nature, I asked Noah, do you like your job? And without skipping a beat, Noah says, I love my job. And so I followed up. I said, what is it that the Four Seasons is doing that would make you say to me, I love my job? And without skipping a beat, Noah said, throughout the day, managers will walk past me and ask me how I'm doing, if there's anything that I need to do my job better. He said, not just my manager, any manager. And then he said something magical. He says, I also work at Caesar's Palace. And at Caesar's Palace, the managers are trying to make sure we're doing everything right. They catch us when we do things wrong. He says, when I go to work there, I like to keep my head under the radar and just get through the day so I can get my paycheck. He says, here at the Four Seasons, I feel I can be myself. Same person, entirely different experience from the customer who will engage with Noah. So we in leadership are always criticizing the people. We're always saying, we've got to get the right people on the bus. I've got to fill my team. I've got to get the right people. But the reality is, it's not the people. It's the leadership. If we create the right environment, we will get people like Noah at the Four Seasons. If we create the wrong environment, we will get people like Noah at Caesar's Palace. It's not the people. And yet we're so quick to hire and fire You can't hire and fire your children. If your kids are struggling, we don't say, you got to see at school, you're up for adoption. So why is it that when somebody has performance problems at work, why is it that our instinct is to say, you're out? We do not practice empathy. What does empathy look like? Here's the lack of empathy. This is normal in our business world. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into our office and says, your numbers have been down for the 3rd quarter in a row. You have to pick up your numbers, otherwise I can't guarantee what the future will look like. How inspired do you think that person is to come to work the next day? Here's what empathy looks like. You walk into someone's office, someone walks into your office and says, your numbers are down for the 3rd quarter in a row. Are you okay? I'm worried about you. What's going on? We all have performance issues. Maybe someone's kid is sick. Maybe they're having problems in their marriage. Maybe one of their parents is dying. We don't know what's going on in their lives. And of course it will affect performance at work. Empathy is being concerned about the human being, not just their output. We have, for some reason, our work world has changed over the past 20 and 30 years. We are suffering the side effects of business theories left over from the 80s and 90s. And they are bad for people, and they are bad for business. Let me give you an example. The concept of shareholder supremacy was a theory proposed in the late 1970s. It was popularized in the 80s and 90s. It is now standard form today. You talk to any public company and you ask them their priority and they say maximize shareholder value. Really? That's like a coach prioritizing the needs of the fans over the needs of the players. How are you going to build a winning team with that model? But that's normal today. We don't even perceive it as broken or damaged or wrong or outdated. Remember, the 80s and 90s were boom years with relative peace and a kinder, gentler Cold War. Nobody was practicing hiding under their desks in school anymore. We are no longer in those times. These are no longer boom years. These are no longer peaceful times, and those models cannot work today. Here's another one. Mass layoffs. Using someone's livelihood to balance the books, right? It's so normal in America today that we don't even understand how broken and how damaging it is, not only to human beings, but to business. You know, companies talk about how they want to build trust and cooperation, and they announce a round of layoffs. Do you know the quickest way to destroy trust and destroy cooperation in a business, literally in one day? Lay people off, and everyone gets scared. Right? Can you imagine sending someone home to say, honey, I can no longer provide for our family because the company missed its arbitrary projections this year? And forget about the people who lost their job. Think about the people who kept their jobs. Because every single decision a company makes is a piece of communication. And the company has just communicated to everybody else, this is not a meritocracy. We don't care how hard you work or how long you've worked here. If we miss our numbers and you happen to fall on the wrong side of the spreadsheet, I'm sorry, we cannot guarantee employment. In other words, we come to work every day afraid. And we're asking our youngest generation to work in environments where how would any of us ever stand up and admit, I made a mistake? We're constantly being told, you have to be vulnerable. Leaders are vulnerable. What does that even mean? It doesn't mean you walk around crying, I'm vulnerable, right? No, what vulnerability means is you create an environment in which someone feels safe enough to raise their hand and said, I don't know what I'm doing. You've given me a job and I haven't been trained to do it. I need help. I made a mistake. I screwed something up. I'm scared. I'm worried. All of these things no one would ever admit inside a company because it puts a target on your head in case there's another round. And so we keep it to ourselves. And how can a company ever do well if nobody's ever willing to admit they made a mistake, that's scared, or they don't know what they're doing? And so we've literally created cultures in which every single day everybody comes to work and lies, hides, and fakes. And we're asking our youngest generation to work and succeed and find themselves and build their confidence and overcome their addiction to technology and build strong relationships at work. We're asking them to do this, and these are the environments we've created. We keep saying to them, you're the future leaders. We're the leaders now. We're in control. What are we doing? This is what empathy means. It means if there's an entire generation struggling, maybe it's not them. It's like, you know, the only thing that the common factor in all my failed relationships? Me. Same thing. Oh, we just can't get the right performance out of our people. Maybe it's you. Right? It's not a generation. It's not them. They're not difficult or hard to understand. They're human beings like the rest of us, trying to find their way, trying to work in a place where they feel that someone cares about them as a human being. By the way, that's what we all want. In other words, it's not even generational. It's all of us. This is the practice of empathy, that if we're struggling to communicate to someone, if we're struggling to help someone be at their natural best, I'm tired of people saying to me, how do I get the best out of my people? Really, that's what you want? They're like a towel, you just wring them. How can I get the most out of them? No, how do I help my people be at their natural best? Right? We're not asking these questions. We are not practicing empathy. We have to start by practicing empathy and relate to what they may be going through. And it will profoundly change the decisions we make. It will profoundly change the way we see the world. Someone's driving to work. You're driving to work. And someone wants to cut into your lane. What do? Do you pull your car up, or do you let them in? Most of us pull our cars up and go like this. You wait your turn. Now let's practice empathy. I don't know, maybe they've been out of work for 6 months. Maybe they had trouble getting the kids out to school this morning, and now they're running late for a really important interview, and they just have to get to this interview, and they're gonna cut into our lane. Or maybe they're just a bastard, I don't know. But that's the point. We don't know. We don't know. And the practice of empathy will say, I'll let them in, and I'll arrive to work 1 car length late. Right? We don't always have to be right. We don't always have to be in charge. We don't always have to be the one who succeeds. It's not about winning or losing.
Sorry for that rather abrupt ending, but that's the way the recording finished. But I don't know what you, Paul, I found that pretty inspirational. Our interview guest was unable to come today. Sorry about that. And sorry for the music, the outro music in the middle of that, but that was because I was playing it from here. Now. Okay. All right. I'll now do the outro for that. What's tomorrow? Tomorrow is District 71 conference. Okay. Sorry for the abrupt ending there, folks, but that was the way the recording finished. I hope you enjoyed it. Do join us again tomorrow when Paul and I will be discussing the upcoming District 71 conference and what's going on in the background to prepare for this conference. We'll see you then. Is that a fair start? I believe you're still muted, Paul. What a surprise. I really think that somebody should create a clever meme for this, because virtually every single Zoom meeting, there is somebody who's chatting away like there's no tomorrow and nobody hears or listens. Myself included. I'm not...
It happened to me this morning. I was on a phone call, and I don't know how long I was talking till I finally said, "Is there anybody there?"
It's so easily done. It's just crazy. We don't realize. And I have a double jeopardy, because not only might I be muted in Zoom, but I also have a little button here on my desk, and I press that button and I'm suddenly offline. And I do that quite a lot because there's a little bit of noise that comes out from my microphone. And I'd much rather there wasn't any noise in my microphone, you know, because it disturbs the beauty of the audio. So what happens when you become an audio junkie? Right.
Just for your amusement, well, it's more to emphasize something. One of my favorite phrase from Simon Sinek is where he was describing what he thought was a superb work environment.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave the quotation, "I feel I can be myself."
Yeah. Yeah.
That
it was very telling.
That is really special, that phrase.
Yeah.
And in truth, I would say that for the most part, I have been able to be myself in Toastmasters.
Yeah, I'd go along with that.
Much more than in other situations that I can remember.
Yeah.
But I have felt usually, a lot of the time anyway, that I can say what I want to say, that I can do what I want to do, and I can just be myself. Now, there are other times, of course, when you say, right, I'd like to do this, but you can't do it because the organization doesn't allow you to do it. But I still think that it's a very good place to be if you want to be yourself.
True. But that's one of the advantages, if you'd like to call it that, of a voluntary organization. Okay, there are rules, and we do have to follow certain rules, but they are minimal when you come to think of it.
I think I've spoken to quite a lot of people in some other voluntary organizations, and it's a very long way from them being able to be themselves, a very long way. Yeah. They could leave because it's a voluntary organization. While they stay, there are lots of examples of voluntary organizations where it's been very unpleasant to stay. Very unpleasant. Okay, so look, I've...
Right, well, you've got an episode. Let's just start calling them episodes. Episode 3.
Yeah,
this
episode
week's,
3, yeah.
Okay.
You're going to introduce it. Yeah.
I will introduce it. I will introduce you. Right. And I am on screen now, and the recording is ready to go. Whilst I do all my other background things in the background. Welcome to this week's section. Oh, I've done it again, haven't I? Silly cow. I'm allowed to call myself silly cow. Nobody else is. This is what happens when you don't use a script. Welcome to the third episode of this week's podcasts on irishtalkers.com, the talk show for talkers. Just a little reminder of our email address, info@irishtalkers.com, and our Facebook page, the talk show for talkers. It's now my great pleasure to hand you over to the particular Paul O'Mahony, because Paul is going to be talking about our forthcoming district conference and all that goes into the preparation and organisation behind it. Paul, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Listeners, although Moira has said I'm going to go into all the preparation behind it, I haven't a clue. The reason I say I haven't got a clue is that there are so many people involved in organizing the District 71 conference, so many different roles that are being played by people, that there are only a very small number of roles I know anything about. And one of the roles that I know something about is the program. What is in store? I really want to hand back to Moira in a second. She'll probably kill me for doing this, but she is involved in some of what goes on behind the scenes. So Moira, can I give you a table topic, no longer than a table topic, say 2 minutes, to tell us anything and everything you know about what goes on behind the scenes, and then you hand back to me and I'll tell you what's going to be in front of the stage.
Okay, that's fair enough. I do happen to know quite a bit about what's going on behind the scenes, and
Right.
it is...
I'll put you on the clock.
Okay.
And so off you go.
Okay, there's a heck of a lot going on behind the scenes. There is a whole website which is in a conferencing app called Hoover. Now, when I first heard of this, I thought, what on earth is a vacuum cleaner doing with a... But of course, it's not the vacuum cleaner, and it's not spelt H-O-O, it's spelt W-H-O-V-A, but they pronounce it Hoover. Now, within Hoover, there is a tremendous amount of information being built up. But that's only part of it. If I look at the Google Docs that has been set up for the conference, there are about 30 different documents sitting in that. And each one of those documents is fairly substantial, and each one is concerned with the planning of a single item on the agenda for the conference. So imagine, I think there are about 20 people involved in the conference organization. I'm but one very small cog, because the only thing that I'm responsible for is the live streaming of certain parts of the conference. But there are people who are involved in every aspect of the preparation for and the promotion of the conference. I did have a little bit of work on the promotion, in that I did produce a video to promote the conference, but that was very small. Have I finished my 2 minutes, Paul? I did see a...
No, I give you another 15 seconds.
Okay. I don't think I have much more to say without putting the website up and going through some of the detail, which I don't really want to do. But suffice it to say that there are weekly meetings, and there have been for the last, I would say, 4 or 5 weeks, weekly Zoom meetings, which tend to go on for an hour and a half or more, discussing the various aspects of the preparation. And very little of that time has been wasted time.
Well, you're heroes, aren't they, listeners? They are heroes. These are all volunteers. None of them are being paid a penny for their time, and yet they're giving up hours and hours and hours behind the scenes. And you know what? It's even possible that there'll be people among them who nobody will hear mentioned during the entire conference. It's a tremendous piece of work they do. But let me tell you, this is the longest Toastmasters conference in human history. Because it begins, the journey and the conference itself, it begins on the 8th of May. And what happens on the 8th of May, you might say? Well, on the 8th and the 9th of May, there are speech contests. So that's the first opportunity for people who are interested in the conference to get a look at who are the contestants and watching them perform in the semi-final. And watching the contestants perform in the semi-final gives you an opportunity to do something which you will have all the time. It gives you an opportunity to network. You will be there watching the speech contest. You will have the chat. You will have WhatsApp. You will have the very app that Moira mentioned, Hoover, W-H-O-V-A. You'll have that to chat with people about what's going on. So networking on the 8th and 9th. And that means that in the intervening period between the 8th and 9th, and the next bit, the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, you've got time to build up a relationship so that when you come back, you can be pretty sure all the people who go to the semi-final will be there for the final and the conference. So let's leave the semi-final aside. There are 2 days, a Saturday and Sunday. But fast forward then to the Friday the 21st. Now, Friday the 21st, everything is going to begin at about 5 o'clock in the day. And it's going to begin with a short opening ceremony, and there'll be lots of Toastmasters ritual associated with that. Now, remember, you'll be meeting people who you have met before when you're at this conference. So you will then see, you will have an opportunity to see people who are going up for election. So there's what is called a candidate showcase on that Friday. There's also at the same time an alternative attraction for those who would like to do something else other than see people who are going up for election. On that Friday, you're going to be able to listen to Cheryl Roosh, who's a very distinguished Toastmaster, and she's going to do a presentation for 50 minutes about Speak Like a Pro. I am not going to go through all the other vast menu of things that are on. There's stuff there about branding, stuff there about podcasting, accredited speakers, how to write a speech in 10 minutes. And that gets you through until the 8 o'clock opening ceremony. I made a mistake. The first thing that actually happens on that particular Friday is not an opening ceremony. It's the candidate showcase and Speak Like a Pro, both happening at the same time. So on we go, an opening ceremony for a quarter of an hour at 8 o'clock. And then there's a big relaxed meeting, which is for one representative of each of the areas in our district who will have a role on speaking or evaluating or doorkeeping or all the different roles that can be invented. And that goes on from 8:15 until 11:15. So that's one big meeting. And that's what used to be called may still be called by some people, the Anglo-Irish meeting. Now, Saturday starts off at 8:30 in the morning for some people when there's an executive council meeting. And then the AGM, really, the district business meeting, starts off at 10 o'clock and goes on for quite a long time. And while that is happening, there is a feast of alternative attractions. Now, on the business meeting, there'll be all sorts of things, including election of next year's officers, the current vice president, the current program quality director is going up to be the district director, for example, and there'll be an election. So then we have all of these workshops going on during the day, meeting the speaker, the power of stories goes on. And then at 3:10 in the afternoon, we have the International Speech Contest Final. And that's the first speech contest final in the District 71 contest this year. And then immediately after that, we have impromptu speaking, table topics contest final after that. And when all of those finals are over, there's going to be a party. Going to be a party called a gala party. I imagine I'll have to wear a dicky bow. We'll see. By the way, Maura, are you going to go to this conference? By the way, you said you were doing work, but are you going to be able to see any of it?
That's a very good question, Ted, and I don't know the answer to that. Yes, I'll be able to see quite a lot of it. I'm only going to be working during the contests, in that I will be either live streaming or just recording the contests. But during the actual conference sessions, main sessions, then I will be live streaming. So I will be attending, obviously, those ones which I'm live streaming. But there will be more than one person involved in live streaming because we have a few things which are happening at the same time. So we'll have to see.
That's great. And tell me, when you are live streaming something, do you actually get to watch it as well?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, definitely. Because the live stream is not like what we're doing here. It's a very simple, straightforward capturing the speaker screen, and that's it. So there's no background organisation to do like I'm doing now with I'm putting myself on full screen and now I'm putting you on full screen and now back to us two speakers. There's nothing of that going on. It's just start recording, stop recording. That's it.
Well, this gala party on the Saturday night may go on until the wee small hours. It officially finishes at 10 o'clock, but I suspect there'll be a lot of networking, gossiping, drinking, dancing, goodness knows, a lot of breakout rooms, I suspect, going on at the same time. Who knows? But then you have to get up on Sunday morning. And on Sunday morning, you've got an hour on how to get untired. Now, I'm definitely going to that. How to get untired. Now, there's a subtitle, the EQ, that means emotional intelligence or something, the EQ mindset for better relationships, but how to get untired. I'm definitely not missing that. Even so, that means if I'm knackered on Sunday morning, I can go along to that session and I'll be fine. There's also sessions about interview survival, the Rotary. There's a session on Rotary. There's more stuff about stories. Lots of people are interested in stories. I think the big thing, though, that'll be going on is networking. I've had a look at what answers people have given to when they say, what's the favorite thing that's going to happen at this conference? And an awful lot of people say networking. Well, there we are. Meet the speakers. That's another one. Lots of speakers you'll meet. And we've got then we have, again, 3:15 on Sunday afternoon, the thing you've been waiting for, a laugh, a smile, a joke. Although jokes don't usually do you so well in the humorous speech contest, but humorous speech contest followed by the evaluation speech contest. And then a closing ceremony, which finishes at 6:20. Now, I dread to think how many parties will be taking place after this conference. There could be quite a lot of bijou parties you might like to get invited to. But running through the whole thing, last thing I want to say, listeners, is this. It isn't written in the program anywhere, and you won't see this written down. There's a massive opportunity to attract people to visit your club and convert them from a guest to a member. So this is a big event, a lot of people there. Don't forget that in Toastmasters, you can be a member of 2 clubs. In fact, you can even join 3. I know people who are members of more than 3 clubs. So there you are. So that was fantastic fun and games, loads of networking, loads and loads of education, new officers elected for next year, and it all begins on the 8th of May.
And I've just been looking at the website, and there's a considerable amount of social activity on the Hoover website. I actually counted 68 topics in the discussion part. And in addition, there is a load of meetups. There's a lot of clubs who are promoting their own club meetings. Go into the website once you've signed up for the free entry to the conference and look at the social announcements page, the community pages. There's a lot there. And with that, we'll bring this episode to a close. And we'll see you again tomorrow when we're going to be talking about that subject that Paul just mentioned, which is turning guests into members. Okay.
Moira.
Paul.
I think after looking at this website in major detail,
Yep.
I need to pass on a few suggestions to whoever's responsible for it. Just that there's a little bit of tidying up to be done.
I can do some tidying up, and I have already done some tidying up because some of it was, needed.
Well, at present, it gives the impression that on Friday, May the 21st, everything kicks off at 10 o'clock in the morning.
Does it show it like that?
Well, you'd want to have
Let's
a look at
look
it
at
in
the
detail.
event
And if you look at
content.
the program for Friday, May the 21st.
Well, yes, because Friday is yeah, event.
So we can pass
agenda.
on. I think let's not discuss it, but let's
No, I'm just going to have a quick look.
have a
Just out of
quick look.
curiosity, yeah. And take 2 seconds. Friday, 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m. There's nothing else in until 5 p.m. No, there is 5 p.m.
No,
Yes.
wait a minute, Moira. You
And
have
6
to look
p.m.
more
and 7
closely.
p.m. I am looking at the agenda, the actual
Yeah, but you have to
agenda
look-
page.
You have to look really closely. What time do proceedings start on May the 21st?
Officially, on May the 21st, they start at 5 p.m.
Correct.
Everything above that is put in for earlier dates. And the reason it's put in there is quite simple, that we can't actually put the agenda in before the Friday because we're only paying for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Even though we are using the website.
Look here, that's
Yeah.
a detail which somebody like me who turns on the website could easily say to themselves, right, it starts at 10 o'clock on Friday.
Yeah, but in which case they need glasses because it says live 8th of May, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Live 8th of May, 1:40 to 4:40. Live 9th of May, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Live, etc. Okay, those are for the semi-finals. And that was the only way we could put them in into the agenda.
Okay. Let's go now to take us into the next segment, will you?
Yeah, I will do in a few seconds when I just make sure I've finished off this segment, which it appears I have. So we can...
just give me a second to get a glass of water.
Okay. So it's just you and I. It's good to be just the two of us, or the three of us, or the four of us, or the 51st, 51 of us. You know what I mean. I'm actually delighted to be back behind the camera again. I've missed it. But the trouble is that doing an episode involves an awful lot of hard work and a lot of preparation. And I have to do all the technical preparation as well, which takes me a good 2 or 3 hours to set the meeting up, and another 3 or 4 hours after the meeting's finished. So I don't really have enough time to be able to devote to preparing a segment. Sorry, we've stopped calling them segments. To preparing and I've even forgotten the word we're using.
Episode. Episode is what
episode, that's it, yeah.
called.
Yeah. Episode. Preparing an episode. So Paul is back, and we'll go into the final episode of the week. So let's get started. Do you want to bring this one in, Paul? Seeing as you haven't done any of your exuberant bring-ins.
I'm fine if you do it.
Okay. Hello, Toastmasters, Would-Be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. Here it is again, section... Hello, Toastmasters, Would-Be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. Here we are again with the 4th episode of this week's Talk Show for Talkers on irishtalkers.com. You are very welcome, as always. This week, we're going to be talking about something which is very dear to my heart as president of my club, and that is how we can turn how we can turn guests into members. There is an article in this month's Toastmasters magazine entitled just that, From Guest to Member. How many times do your guests visit before you make it official? Well, that's the prompt for doing this particular segment. But I'm going to hand you over now to Paul to introduce it, because this is something which I think we all ought to be paying more attention to than perhaps we normally do. So, Paul, take it away.
Toast listeners, I've got some news hot from the press for you. Toastmasters International would like to have more members. Toastmasters International has seen membership growing and then has seen membership growth tapering off. But on top of that, the potential size of Toastmasters International is incalculable, whatever it is. It's impossible to know how many people would join Toastmasters if only they knew it exists. But people do come to meetings as guests. Sometimes they're invited by members, sometimes they're attracted by notices in the local newspaper, website, social media. Sometimes guests come to meetings thinking they're going to a meeting of another organization, and they by accident end up at a Toastmasters meeting. Converting guests to members has become very different while Toastmasters clubs are having online meetings. In the old days, when Toastmasters clubs met at a venue, guests could, for example, be allowed in free of charge for a specific number of meetings, and after that they could be charged. Now, nobody would want to exclude a guest, even if somebody kept coming back week after week after week for 6 months. I think it's unthinkable that anybody would be locked out of the meeting on the grounds that they're coming and they're no longer a member. So what kind of policy does your club have in relation to guests? There's an article which is very thought-provoking in this month's Toastmaster magazine. And it really raises a question at the beginning. How many visits can somebody have to your club before they are expected, I'll use that word, to become a member? There is no answer. Clubs have the entire authority to make their own decisions in relation to what's called in the article visitation policy. Some clubs would, for sake of argument, it says in this article, permit you to come to 3 meetings before you're expected to join. In another club, you might be visiting it for 9 months and nobody might ask you to join. You just simply come to the meetings. They tell you when the next meeting is. You go away. Even if it's an online meeting, you go away, the meeting ends, and you come back next week. I have a suggestion for you to think about, listeners. If Toastmasters International wants to get more members, how advisable is it for Toastmasters clubs to hold back on asking somebody to join or inviting somebody to join? How about inviting somebody to join the very first meeting they come? And then think about it in another way. How about it if somebody comes to a Toastmasters meeting and they aren't asked to join? They see a number of very impressive people making short and long speeches. They see people who are very, very impressive. And they say to themselves, oh my goodness, this club is much too good for me. And that's proven by the fact that no one in the club said to them, by the way, would you like to come into a breakout room so we can tell you about the club? And to be honest, we would love you to join our club. People have left Toastmaster meetings very disappointed that they weren't asked to join. It has been a deflation experience for some. Now, clearly there are people who come to Toastmasters meetings and they say to themselves, I wouldn't join this club for anything, or else Toastmasters International isn't right for me now. I'd be sitting here for 6 months and I'd be afraid to open my mouth. But what is the reason why you shouldn't find out? And you shouldn't be very, very nice to guests and find out if they're looking to improve their communication skills. it is surely fairly easy to have a conversation with a guest after you ask them, look, how was the meeting? How did you find it? Was there anything confusing? And you say, look, by the way, are you looking for a way to improve your communications? Do you have a situation at work or anywhere where you'd like to be more effective at it? And the person might say, no, I'm a very good speaker already, and there's nothing you guys could teach me. So no, thank you very much. I've satisfied myself that Toastmasters isn't for me. And that's great. You don't want somebody like that in the club. They're in the wrong organization. Perhaps they should be in the Professional Speakers Association, and they're ready to go and earn their living doing after dinner speeches or whatever. And then what happens if somebody says, no, I don't think I'm good enough to get better. I think I'm really awful at communicating, and I don't think anything can be done for me. So I don't think I should, I think you'd be wasting your time with me. So maybe you can say to that person, yeah, you're right. You're useless. No point in having you. It's a bit like what some people would recognize as faulty towers approach. It says you're absolutely hopeless. Go home, crawl under the bedclothes and cry your eyes out. And you know what? You'll be a better speaker after doing that. No, that, by the way, is humor. However, why not invite a guest to join? Why not say, look, I'll send you some information about the club and I'll send you an application form and I'll give you a ring on Wednesday and see what you think about it. Now, vice presidents for membership, since I joined Toastmasters in 2015, I've heard people saying things like, oh, Moira, you can't force people to join Toastmasters. You can't do that. You can't ask them to join. That's putting inordinate pressure on them. No. We have to let them, just tell them when the next meeting is on. Then they go to the next meeting and you tell them, oh yeah, come to the next meeting. And they're invited back. Now, in the meanwhile, I guarantee you folks that if they are serious about their communication skills, they might well be gone to another club, which said to them, hey, are you free every Wednesday? Every second Wednesday of the month at 7 o'clock. Are you free then? Right. And look, by the way, do you have enough money to join? It's only $50 or €50. Is that okay for you? I mean, it's phenomenal value, but just to check, because you need to know that we have an annual membership. It's only €100 or €150 or whatever. And but you need to be able to invest that much in yourself. So asking people for money, it says in this article, it quotes somebody, and not everybody finds it easy to say to somebody, look, it'll cost you $45 to join Toastmasters for 6 months, and there's a little bit extra for the club so that we can pay our club expenses, and that's how much it costs. Is that okay with you? Now, people come to Toastmasters to learn how they can say that to somebody. You can join Toastmasters because you're finding it difficult to ask people for money, even when the money is fantastic value. And in Toastmasters clubs, you will learn, if you want to, how to ask people for money. So to finish this segment today, or to finish this episode of the podcast, you are a member of an organization that needs more members. You are capable of being a great person for your club. You are capable of recruiting and turning guests into members. It isn't that hard. Most of the people who come along to a Toastmasters meeting are already thinking about whether they should join. They're already looking for something. Otherwise, they'd be at the bridge club or they'd be at the photographic club. but they're actually at a club which is designed to help them communicate and be more influential in society. What are you waiting for? Your next meeting, ask every guest to join.
Paul, I couldn't agree with you more. I think the number of times that you allow a guest to come before they are asked to join or before they're expected to join is one that the individual club obviously has to be making up their own mind about. I would somehow question a club who allows multiple forever members to attend. I'll rephrase that. Who allow non-members to attend multiple times forever without expecting them to join. But we are both members of an online club where there is not pressure to join. We do invite guests to join, but they can come to the meetings almost an unlimited number of times.
And that, I think, is a wonderful point.
Yeah.
There isn't a Toastmasters club in the world who will shut the door and lock somebody out.
Yeah. And it has been, it's proved extremely successful that the majority of guests eventually sign up.
Well, the key thing is when you use this word, or when this word is used in the article, how many meetings can somebody go to before they are expected to join? Well, that could be rephrased. How many times does a guest need to come to a meeting before you will ask them to join?
Yep, I agree. I agree. And that's the key.
That's actually more
yes.
Useful as a question.
Yeah.
And, you know, some clubs will say, well, as soon as somebody comes in the door, we will befriend them. We'll interact with them in the chat. We have a membership team that will build rapport with the person. And every single one of those people will be invited into a breakout room afterwards. Or if they say, look, I haven't got time to go, we'll get their email address or we'll get their phone number and we'll send on the necessary information and application form to them. But basically everyone will go out there and say, look, the thing about Toastmasters is that if you go to a Toastmasters meeting, they'll be incredibly friendly, very supportive, and they will want you to join. And you will feel a mile high.
And on that very positive note, we'll bring this episode to a close. And in fact, this week's podcasts to a close. We'll invite you to join us again next Friday at the same time, 4 p.m. Irish time. And we look forward to having your presence. Until then, from Moira O'Brien, goodbye. And from Paul O'Mahony,
goodbye.
Okay.
No more. There's an organization called Business Networking International.
Yes.
And they have a policy that is not optional for any of their chapters. Now, they do exert more influence over their chapters, but it is this, that every single person who goes to, as a guest,
yes,
to a business networking is invited effectively into a room afterwards to have a conversation with someone from the club whose job it is to give them as much information as they want, to take away, or in a kind of way to vet them, because they have a, you know, if you're a, their rule is that you can only have one person involved in a particular occupation in every club.
Yes.
But the key thing is that you will be given information, and that information will include an application form.
Yep.
At every single meeting.
Yep. And at Blarney Club, we did this when I was Vice President of Membership. There was a membership pack that was given, a physical paper pack that was given to every guest who walked in that door on their first occasion. And included in that membership pack, apart from information about Toastmasters, information about the club, was a membership form.
In fact, online recruitment is easier because what happens in online recruitment is you build up rapport in the chat. You can actually send them a the membership pack in the chat.
Yep.
You can invite them to come for a chat.
Yes.
And in the face-to-face meetings, yes, you can give them a new membership pack, but it sometimes isn't that easy because they go to the meeting, and if they have decided, as soon as the meeting's over, I'm going home.
Yeah.
It actually is.
It can be more difficult.
And the other thing is, I belong to, I think, a huge minority, but who happen to think online recruitment is easier.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
If you run a decent meeting,
Yeah.
and you say to people at the end, what did you think of that? And they say it was really good.
Yeah.
But so many clubs. The one thing I also, by the way, I'm so, because I've checked on this, am I right that last summer, Blarney didn't shut down at all for the summer?
I can't remember whether we missed one meeting. No, I don't think we did. I think we kept going.
See, I went back through Easy Speak.
Yes.
To check that.
I think we were online all the way through. And we will be this summer.
And I really hope that there will be several more clubs in Cork that will stay open all this summer.
We had a committee meeting recently, and the decision was to remain open, but virtually. So we'll in future, because we are intending to go hybrid, but the meetings in August, which is normally the only month we close down, will be online meetings. And we may extend that to July, given that people start going on holiday in normal times in July. But then we don't need to. It would only be it would be more a matter of saving the cost of the hotel room when there's going to be a reduced number of members attending.
But it also gives us a chance to recruit in May and June.
Yes, absolutely.
A lot of this is being recorded, isn't it?
It's being recorded on YouTube. It's not part of the podcast.
Well, I don't mind saying on YouTube that my opinion is that the longer clubs stay open and provide quality meetings, the greater their chances of recruiting members.
I agree wholly. Yeah. Yeah. So with that, we'll bring the stream to an end. Thanks for joining us, the viewers who watched us live, and thanks to all those who watch us and managed to stay through to the bitter end on the repeat. We'll see you again next week at around about the same time, 3 o'clock-ish on a Thursday afternoon. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Lovely.
Okay, we're offline. That was good. Did I just close the meeting?